We have been talking about the elections, the views of politics, and how is there or should there be a litmus test by which we examine candidates, examine the whole question of politics, the political system. We had an earlier caller who proposed some major changes in the way we look at politics itself here in Hawaii as we plan for Hawaii's future. And based on that, let me terminate this music in the background. He was suggesting that we should have a 5-point litmus test, and I'll just name it very quickly. The first was a point of self-determination. How does a candidate feel about the issue of self-determination for the native Hawaiians? So that whole issue of Hawaiian sovereignty should be the first among the litmus tests. The second is, what do we do with our education system, and how do we frame the whole concept of education within this broader society? The third is the crisis in agriculture, and how do we deal with this question of agriculture, especially as we note more recently the dangers of the weather and its impact, as well as the changes and the loss of agricultural lands. The fourth is the idea of energy, and how do we reformulate a different approach to caring for the issues of energy as it affects us here in Hawaii. And of course, it has larger implications in the rest of the world. And finally, the challenge to a creation of a more peaceful society. How do we bring about such more peaceful societies? Some ways of looking at this idea of changing the society. How do we look at it? One is an approach of reforming it by new individuals, new people coming in and voting in a different direction. The question of Obama's economic policies, or Romney's economic policies, and all that kind of stuff. Reforming the system. Other people are saying much more than just reforming the different policies that are undertaken. What we should do is restructuring the whole system. I spoke to some extent about that in terms of how should we be electing delegates to our various political bodies. Should it be located merely in the sense of geography, or should we redefine the whole idea of how we community with one another? And then you have a different approach to approaching politics, and that is by the transformation system, using different values, different philosophies, different dreams, and using that as a foundation upon which you rebuild your new system, your restructuring. But you cannot simply restructure unless you look at those values, those dreams, and the rest. And so if we structured it that way, that's how I would sort of construct or deconstruct first, and then reconstruct the discussions we have had. First, in terms of reforming, you're looking at who won, who lost, what new policies will be brought in. Second is restructuring. Is there a different way in which we should elect people? And the third is a transformation. And I would see the litmus test suggested earlier as being that more transformative way of approaching how the system proceeds, or how we develop an appropriate political system. Okay, so having said that, and I know we have had a caller waiting for quite a while, we will get to the telephone calls. Our telephone number is 524-1080. Aloha caller, welcome to the program.
Aloha.
Yes, aloha.
Aloha. Those 5 points, that was Michael, I believe, huh?
Yes.
Psychologist.
Yes.
Yes.
Or
very lucid mind indeed. I would hope you would share that. You know, I wish you could post that on your website, the 5 points of his litmus test.
Okay, and with that, I'll ask him right on the air, Michael, if you can write up and do an explanation of it, and then we can take a look at it on the website. I'll post it. I'll be more than happy to post it on the website. And I think that's one of the freshest ideas we have had in a long time.
Yes. Oh. When I apply these points to, well, let's take Mazie Hirono in 5 years, right, in the U.S. House. Not too good, huh? When she was asked for her most notable accomplishments, what do you think is your most notable accomplishments? What are you most proud of? Two things were named. One was mentioned by an earlier caller, the cleanup of an old dump site in Waimanalo, which is great. It's if you can get Uncle Sam to fork over some of his Federal Reserve notes and to clean up his Opala, wonderful, right?
Yeah.
Great. But wow, that's the most notable thing he did.
Is that all to it? Yeah. Isn't there more?
One more thing, Poka.
Go ahead.
She would obtain funds for, to make either improvements or to repair some irrigation facilities on Hawaii Nui Akea. Maybe in Honoka'a side, maybe. Which is good for agriculture up there. That's wonderful also. But these two things constitute what she considers as her most proudest and notable accomplishments. I mean, these seems to be rather mundane things, for these people to do, right? And so when we apply these 5 points to Ms. Hirono, you fall short.
Well, and maybe what we would need is, with Michael's 5 points, by passing it around and seeing how do the candidates fall along these areas of the 5 points, and both from the Democratic side, from the Republican side, and push it out as a measure of the appropriateness of one holding office. Because these 5 points, they may have been spoken about at one time or another, but not in this collection of, okay, let's just put it down and here it is. Now let's go out and measure candidates so that you can check Mazie Hirono as well as Ed Kay. So in this case, it's going to be Linda Lingle, and see how they stand along these measures, this litmus test. So we'll see how it falls.
This leads into what I wanted to ask you, Poka, because I know you have some very pointed criticism of I call her Linda Single, because of her effect on adult mental health. Yeah.
Yes.
While she was the governess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you could rather essentially tell us what is wrong with Linda Lingle, or what did she do that was so adverse to adult mental health in Hawaii?
Okay, let me answer that, and then we have 2 more callers on the line, and we have about 10 minutes more. So I'll do that, and then I'll take the callers. So thank you very much for your call. Take care. Ahui ho. And to answer that caller's question, at the present time, in fact, 2 days from now, there's going to be another emergency meeting among the Adult Mental Health Division folks. Last week, there was an emergency meeting at the state hospital. The state hospital is trying to address the question, how do we cut down on the number of people in the state hospital. Right now they have, I think it was 202 individuals at the state hospital, and they only have beds for 168, I think it was. So they're way over the amount that they should have there. And they cannot find places to put the excess in the communities. Now, previously, the state was sued by the Department of Justice because the state hospital was holding these people in, and according to the federal, what is called the Olmstead Act, fact, you need to get them out into the community if they can be serviced into the community. And you find that the state hospital is saying they need not be in the state hospital, but we just cannot find room in the community. And why is that? The Adult Mental Health Division will have a meeting 2 days from now to address that question. That question had been answered until the Lingle administration came in and wiped it out. And it was under her administration that she said we are not going to authorize any more additional beds for 24 hours or 8 to 16 hours. And these beds are where we put up with people out of the state hospital. We attach them to case managers and we deal with them in the community rather than facing this problem. With a particular team, it was called the ACT team. It was under Lingle's administration that all of that was cut. And so when I went to the meeting the last time, I said it was deja vu all over again. The same issues are coming back, and it is because of the administration of the prior administration, and now the Abercrombie administration has not caught up with the destruction that occurred in the Lingle administration. Not only that, but during her administration, she allowed her people to practice great prejudices against the folks in Waianae, requiring that we abide by higher standards than the rest of the state community mental health centers had. And as a result of our refusal, they cut our programs and tried to kill the Halinao Pono, the only private, not-for-profit community mental health center that was far in excess, much more effective, more reliable than all of the state community mental health centers. So it was out of that kind of viciousness that they came in and attacked the programs that we had developed, meant specifically for the local people out in Waianae. Okay, I'm sorry for taking so long. We do have other callers, and I'm going to have to limit the calls just to very few comments. Aloha, caller. Welcome to the program.
Morning, Polka.
Good morning.
Under the Carlisle administration, he really is screwing up on the bus and handy van, the routes.
Mm-hmm.
We have a meeting concerning the handy van and the bus next week, Tuesday. This coming Tuesday, actually, the 14th.
Okay.
Honolulu High, second floor. It's called Citizens for a Fair ADA Ride.
Mm-hmm.
And we got handy vans right now that are down, broken.
Mm-hmm.
Drivers waiting for vans to have to wait for another van to come in to pick up their passengers and whatnot.
Yeah.
They have broken lifts to pick up people with wheelchairs and walkers, and that's going to be addressed at the meeting. That's very unbad. I don't know what Wayne Yoshika is doing and what kind of tool he's going to pull out from his toolbox.
Yeah.
But it's very depressing. But it's going to be 10 a.m. to 11:45.
Okay, second
I'll let
floor.
you know next weekend how it went, but we should have some of the council people there too, Ernie Martin, Breen Haramoto.
Yeah, it would be interesting if you were a fly on the wall, or you had a recorder on the wall, and you could hear the conversations on Monday morning as they see that Peter Carlisle is not going to be mayor.
Well, I talked to Carlisle personally on the radio station. I told him about it. He said, you have to address it to Wayne Yoshika. Before I can say I did, he cut me off.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Aloha. And let's go to our next caller. Aloha, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Polka.
Good morning.
Excuse me. I'd just like to add a quick note to the 5 categories that were called in before, and to the 5th one, which is create a more peaceful environment. I think that we don't go far enough in that, and I'd like to add a note to that category, is that we must consider the structure of the family. I mean, I know that gets an emotional response. Everybody goes mad at first.
Yes.
But it must be given consideration, because the way it's been traditionally structured supports a hierarchy of power, and that's where I think we cannot possibly have a more peaceful environment without examining how that structure contributes to an anti-peaceful environment. And that's, I don't expect an answer. As a matter of fact, I don't want one right now because people can't imagine that. So it takes a while to handle the emotional response. I'll hang up and listen to you.
Okay, thank you for your call. Take care. Aloha. And yes, that idea of the restructuring of family, the hierarchy, and you all know that I have this, some would call it a pet peeve. I think it's more than just a pet peeve, but it's a foundational approach to the development of societies, the development of how we think, and that is the deep culture. The structure of families really rests on how we construct our deep culture. In some families, you do have that very heavy hierarchy of father being in the lead, the dominating force, normally the breadwinner, and his voice is the voice of the family. And yet you have other families where, the feminine voice is very, very strong, able to not necessarily compete, but add to the voice of the family. And so it's sometimes in a softer, a lot of the heart speaking, and of course, there's no denial that the feminine side can also speak with the head as well as with the heart. So it's a more collaborative approach. It's a reflection of deep culture rather than a DIE approach. It's the OLA approach. Rather than the DIE, it's the OLA approach. And I believe that is central to especially point number 5. How do we create more peaceful societies? And those peaceful societies are not created, as far as I am concerned, based on the ability to dominate, to control, and to force the peace. But it is through the collaboration, the understandings of one another, and to be able to respect the differences and to collaborate for the creation of a more peaceful society rather than to be dominant over. And I think it starts with the family, but you can see that type of comparison all through the political systems to the highest level, especially as you deal with international affairs. One approach is to simply come in with your forces and overwhelm, take over, change a regime, and tell them to operate according to how we want your regime to operate. And then propose to give them now the power again to operate their regime, but following your particular policies. The other approach is, rather than going into anyone else's house, or rather than disrespecting the sovereign integrity of all areas, let us be respectful, understand, and perhaps 50%, if not more, of the problem is in our lack of understanding and appreciation and respect for the others. So let's develop that philosophy and build upon that as a more peaceful structure of society. There's a lot of things to be discussed in these 5, what has been called the litmus test, but within that litmus test there's a lot of analysis that is to be developed. I will be in touch with Michael, and Michael, as you listen to this program, I hope you will be drafting a paper on this, and we'll go ahead and put it up on my website. The website is known as hawaiianperspectives.org, and there you can cue in on some of our radio shows as well as some of the publications that we have done over a period of time. So you'll see a number of different things on that website. Okay.
Kaulana nā pua o Hawaii, Kupa'a mahope o ka aina, Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino, Pala pala anunu me ka paka